Well, the title of tonight's program is Contemporary Times. Contemporary Times because this is a deep situation that we're in as a people. And not only as a community, but the world. I would say the world is in the deepest situation that it's been in at least since World War II, which was 75 years ago. I say that because in the 20th century we had World War I and we had World War II and we had several wars. World War I was the introduction of the world into the 20th century. This is the way people felt like before we was really in the horse and buggy, real horse and buggy stage. And then World War I was around 100 years ago, finished in 1918. It started in 1914, and by the time that war was finished, the airplane that had been introduced in warfare, the great guns of modern times, cannons and what have you, had been introduced into warfare. Telecommunications, submarine warfare, all of these things became really not only introduced. Tanks, that was their first introduction to warfare. So World War I was a great experience. It was also a horrific experience. They called it, at first, until World War II, they called it the Great War. The Great War because it caught the world by surprise. It really shocked the world. And right now we have this great case they had another case of influenza in 1918, right after the war. It killed millions of people. And now we have this coronavirus. This is new. The 20th century was a century of unbelievable warfare, physical, direct warfare. So World War II followed World War I by about 20 years. And in 1945, it ended with the explosion of the atomic bomb on Japan. At that time, people said, we're in a real new age. We're in an age now that the human being could destroy itself. Can you imagine? So that was, it finished with the war in Vietnam, and it finished with several smaller wars. All those were horrific. In the meantime, they had the Korean War in 1950, 51, 53. But the time we're living in right now is different. This is a different time. This might be the introduction to the 21st century. Like World War I introduced the 20th century to the 20th century. This virus, this global situation, this worldwide trauma that the world is going through might be the introduction to the 21st century. But one thing that it does is put the human being kind of in a freeze, like we have a chance to ponder, why are we here? You know, people get a chance to stay at home, get a chance to think, and get a chance to look at, hey man, what is this all about? Now, we look at this as a great period. We don't want to say it's a good period, it's a bad period, but it is a great period. That's one thing about it. Now, one thing about this period is, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it as a community and as individuals? This came up on us like, I could tell you the truth, when I came back here in December, I was going to come back and just do a few things and go back to California. Then on the 3rd of January, with the assassination of Soleimani from Iran, great general, a great personality, we had been talking for several years about the thousands, the millions of people that were going to Najaf and Karbala, and that they was getting ready for something. The minute he was assassinated, we realized what the purpose of their going, all the Shias going to Najaf and Karbala, by the millions. 20 million, 15 million, 25 million. I mean, the Hajj that we have covers 2 to 3 million people. That's the Hajj. Can you imagine 25, 27, 28 million people going to one place? This is a big deal. And nobody was paying that much. They was paying attention. They were looking at it. They were commenting on it. But I would go so far as to say we were the only ones that were really paying attention to there is a purpose for that. Allah is getting them ready for something. And we said it once or twice a month here in our lectures, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was getting them ready for something. Okay, soon as our brother was assassinated, we said that was the reason. And all the events following that showed that that's what it was. This brought the world back to a consciousness of martyrdom and being ready to face challenges. It was, to a lot of people, it might not have been a big deal, but for some of us, it was a big deal, the biggest deal. Now, let's skip to now. So we have the situation that the world is going through now. And it seems as though whether we were prepared or not, it said that it's better to be prepared for a situation that never comes, an opportunity that never comes, than for an opportunity to come and you not be prepared. Well, we have to force ourselves into preparation right now. We talked not long ago about writing our own book, writing our own history. That's what we talked about. But we also said that we were writing a history for our people. That we were writing, it's like writing a script and you putting the people in the script, whether they have anything to do with it or not. But you're writing a script for them now. What does all this mean? It means simply that it appears that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been preparing our community for certain things. And it has a lot to do with sabr, patience. It has a lot to do with longevity. It has a lot to do with visioneering. It has to do with all the things that we've been talking about. And of course, I'm going to read from one of my favorites here. This is on Sabbath. We've been on this for quite some time, but we can't escape it. A free human being is free in all circumstances. Should a misfortune befall him, he bears it with patience. That is sabr. Sabr in Arabic means to check, to tie, to contain. It means to control yourself. And as much as you can to control your environment, because if you can control yourself, you can have influence on your environment. Now what that means is, it means you and I. It means the contemporary times have jumped up on us right in our face. And the question arises, what do we do about it? What do we do about it right now? That's what the talk is about tonight, contemporary times. But it talks about if calamities strike him, they do not shatter him. If taken captive and subdued, he turns hardship into ease, as was the case of Yusuf alayhi salam, the truthful and trustworthy. His freedom saved him from harm, although he was enslaved, subdued, and imprisoned. You know, years ago, I want you to think about, just go back 40 years ago. We've been through the black struggle. We've been through struggles overseas. We've tried to aid and assist people in the black movement. We were really a part of life at that time. In fact, we believe technically all of the big Negro movies that was made at that time, we believe it was based on our experience. Superfly was one of the biggest black exploitation movies. It was about a drug dealer that basically wanted to stop dealing, and he had a lot of things with his society and the police. And finally, he got a chance to leave the United States. And they tried to block him in and make him poor and cut him off, but he was able to slip off with, they insinuate, $150,000. Now, that don't mean $150,000 don't sound like a lot of money today, but it would be the same as 1.5 million today. Easy, about the same thing. And he went off and he got overseas and he got involved in the African rebellion and what have you. And at the end, he's called the minister he was involved with, that told him, meet me at my house is across from the mosque, from the Masjid. And the Adhan is being called and he's going to meet this big minister. He didn't help him get guns and what have you. We have a friend that went through very similar things like that. When he went overseas, there's people who are still alive that know that if you see certain ministers in history that related to the black struggle, like Muhammad Babu, that was Malcolm X's friend. Okay, he was African American's friend too over there. In fact, to tell you the truth, when I was in Algeria, I was living with Kofi Bashar. He was Kwame Nkrumah's press secretary. And you know how a press secretary can really talk good. And I used to listen to him talk about the African liberation struggle and all that. And in Algeria, which was an Arab country, we wanted to go to Black Africa. So when I went to Black Africa, he gave me a letter of introduction to Muhammad Babu. And I went and I met him in the State House. And anyway, a long story short, we got involved with some pretty good people in those days. But life had something else. You come and you look at the struggle, you see, well, maybe the struggle is dead. Then you have to, we call it wandering in the wilderness, where you're trying to figure out, what do we do now? The black struggle is gone. It's gone. Clearly it's gone. And for some people it might be depressing. But when you get grown, you know how to deal with life a little bit, and you say, now, what's next? What do we do next? Personally, I had a case here in the United States, so I said, first thing I'm going to do, I know one thing, you can't work underground. Because if you work underground, all you can do is blow up buildings and be mad and angry. Whatever the next move is, has to be above ground. Can't be underground. A lot of underground movements in those days, Bible Half Gang, Japanese Red Army, the PLO, those movements, they were, in fact, the same year that the PLO moved on Munich in 1972. You may not believe it. I was in Munich. I just left Munich, man. I'm telling you, I just left Munich. And there they was, and I said, well, I'm glad I wasn't there, because they tried to blame it on me. But anyway, the idea is wandering in the wilderness. You have to figure out what's next. By the time we got all our stuff taken care of, and we come home in late 79, 80, we came home as a Muslim. And that was a good time in prison, because you have time to study Islam and to really practice, and get, and when you come home, you open a masjid, you're off and rolling, you hit the ground running. But you never forget all the things that you've been through. And all of a sudden, a pattern of behavior develops with the government. You may be the most innocent man and you have no malintentions. But if the government know you, they ain't gonna give you no rest. And then they come down and they infiltrating your community, they doing everything. Pretty soon, after 4 or 5 years, you realize that everybody is the police. They're infiltrating your community. And ain't nothing you can do about it. Now you have to go through another period. It's not wandering in the wilderness. You know what you're going to do, but what do we do under these conditions? What do we do? I mean, look, you got Boss Man here. Boss Man got a second wind. And Boss Man that went through all of his changes, and he is sabotaging and infiltrating every group in the United States. And you know it. And so does everybody else. Well, no, I don't say it. So does everybody else. But anybody active, they know. Then you look and you see, well, all the brothers in prison, all the brothers, some got killed. Some that in prison look like they're going to be there for the next dozens of years. And so, now what are you going to do? When you know that the people coming to your community are United States government agents, do they know? So you have to have a policy. You're not going to quit. You're not going to, you may accept that as this is part of the struggle. This is technically, it might be normal. Where some people think that, if you drive across the country, it's normal. Sometimes it's going to be hot weather. Sometimes you're going to go in the mountains, it's maybe snowing. right? You go all the way across the country, you expect to run into different weather patterns and what have you. You may go through Kansas and man, a tornado or something that may be rolling through there and swoop you up and drop you down in Oklahoma. You don't know, but you expect that if you're going from here to California, according to the route that you're taking, you're going to see certain things. And the more you've been, the more you know what you're going to see. You can plan ahead. The more you know what you're going to see. Anyway, so if you're going to try to change the world and make the world a better place, then you know the people that are in charge don't want this world to be a better place for you. They don't want it to be a better place. They got a struggle going on right this minute with, let's say, the trickle-down economy and the trickle-up economy. Trickle-up economy is probably best for the human being or the people, because trickle-up economy means the government would give a lot of money, like right now, like right this minute. They would give a lot of money to the people, right? And the people would spend that money, and it's going to wind up in the same place. The rich don't get that money, right? But at the same time, when you give the money to me and you, or the middle class, the poor, the middle class, they get a chance to spend that money, and they get a chance, if it's times like these, they're going to spend it semi-wisely. You know, they're going to spend that money, and then the people that own the big companies and everything, as usual, they're going to get that money. No matter what you do with it, they're going to get it. There's an old saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's a rule. That's an absolute rule. You can't find anywhere in the world where that doesn't happen. Why? Because the rich learn how to game the system. And the richer they get, the more they can game the system. The more they can manage the system. And pretty soon, they control the system. When they control the system, all the laws and all the things go their way. And pretty soon, they're going to get richer and richer, and you're going to get poorer and poorer. There's a second group. That's the trickle-down economy. Money is free right now. Money is, there's no, but money's not free for me and you. Now, we believe the best thing for the government to do now